Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturning. A week ago, Tom sent me a picture of a pumpkin box that he had turned. He said it was based on my faux urchin. I was intrigued. One thing I do appreciate about woodturners is their attitude of sharing. And I love it when we can, in effect, leapfrog each other into something new and different. So I was amazed at his process because I did not see how in a standard box you could do it. But there's two important differences in this. One is the box joint is not just straight up and down and across. That would give you little short grain lips out here. But instead it's with it, so this is actually a different style of joint. And then the total stroke of brilliance, I think, in the end was how he put it back on using a dowel so that the veins could be cut subsequently. So this is a leapfrog. I appreciate his willingness to share and your willingness to share. I'd love to see what else you can do with different projects that I see, so send me pictures. I love it. But for now, let's turn this pumpkin box to help us celebrate Halloween and Thanksgiving.
I am starting with a cylinder of cherry longer than its diameter by about 2 inches. Since the diameter is 3.8 inches, I am calculating the key points from the octagon method. 3.8 times the 0.293 finds the octagon corner from the cylinder's corner. 3.8 times 0.414 finds the octagon's side. In this case, I am also adding them together so that I can find the far octagon corner from the near cylinder's corner. This should reduce error coming from measuring from a previous line mark. I also mark the other end of the octagon, but know that the mark will change. For now, it is a guide. I have a nasty drying crack that I am worried about. Now, following the octagon method, I am reducing the diameter beyond the octagon corner to a diameter equal to the octagon side. This is simply to provide a guide point that I can use for a gauge when I cut the first 45-degree side of the octagon. I also cut a shallow tenon high up on the 45-degree side for a temporary chuck mount to be used later. I also cut a tenon on the spindle side of the cylinder to use later to mount the lid. Then part off to make the pumpkin lid. I am positioning this cut about halfway on what will be the other 45-degree side. I have remounted the octagon with that temporary tenon. This is only so I can use the chuck while hollowing the box portion. After gauging a good depth, I'm drilling out the center with a 1 3/4 inch Forstner bit. Then I cut another chamfer perpendicular to the side of the opening. This is a taper that the lid will fit into later. Then on to hollow the box portion. I also take a moment to put some CA in those check cracks. I probably should have also sanded and finished the interior at this point. Off camera, I drilled a 1/4 inch hole about 1/2 inch deep into the bottom. The lid portion is now mounted to the chuck. I need to fit the lid to the base. This is different from most box joints because the mating surfaces are not parallel to the turning axis. Instead, they are on a 45-degree angle. This will be important later when I cut the typical pumpkin grooves. If they were not at this angle, there would be short edges on the lid, but it makes fitting more difficult. This time, I am sanding and applying shellac friction polish to the underside of the lid. Finally, I drill a 1/4 inch hole entirely through the lid. Next, glue in a 1/4 inch dowel to hold the lid to the box while I turn this ordinary box into a pumpkin. The fit is too tight, so I use the tailstock ram to push the dowel into the lid. Retrospectively, I should have made the fit more loose and not need to ram it together. After the glue dried somewhat, I have mounted both portions to continue with the octagon method. The problem I'm facing at this point is there is some play between the lid and the box. I am worried whether the 1/4 inch dowel with the loose fit can stand up to the turning torque. So I'm being very, very careful and taking light cuts while I waste excess wood and cut the final 45-degree side. I found out later that the glue between the dowel and the bottom was not hard and allowed rotation. The lid also split apart along the drying check. The CA did not hold. I re-glued the lid with regular glue and waited for it to dry. Fortunately, it cracked away near the end of this. That was a close one. The dowel is re-glued and the wood is again mounted between centers. I need to finish the octagon method cuts, then on to make the rough sphere. Now to mount the cup faceplates to refine the sphere. The first mount is with the old nub ends at the equator. With gentle cuts with a spindle gouge, I can remove them and work down the shadow at the top. The shadow indicates an irregular surface. A couple more rotations and I'm finished. For a perfect sphere, I would go on to more rotations with all sandpaper grids. That is not necessary for this pumpkin. Next, I need to mark 12 indexing marks around the sphere. There are many ways to do this. This time, I mount the cup faceplate to my chuck so I can use the chuck's indexing. My marks are at 30 degrees. Finally, for the pumpkin effects, there are 12 grooves for my pumpkin. I need to remount it 6 times. To start, I put the sphere in the cup chucks with the original axis running at 90 degrees to the axis. Then I carefully align a mark on one side with the mark on the other side and the dowel that is holding the lid on. Then, with a freshly sharpened spindle gouge, I carefully cut a shallow cove with a half bead on either side. The first set will set the depth for all subsequent sets. I can check the depth at the dowel on the lid and the opposite side where all grooves intersect. The first couple of grooves are fairly easy, but then it is more difficult to seat the sphere into the faceplates due to the prior grooves, and the surface is now uneven due to the intersecting grooves. Gentle cuts are required. Before moving on to the next groove, I sand and apply shellac friction polish. By the time all grooves are finished, the entire outside will have been sanded and finished. I am not finished yet. My donut chuck comes to the rescue again. I had to make a cup center and patted the sphere with a folded paper towel and masking tape. I drill a shallow 3/4 inch hole to receive the pumpkin stem finial. Then drill a 3/8 inch hole over that 1/4 inch dowel. This frees the lid. But wait, there's still a little bit more to finish. I have mounted the box on the chuck with an expansion mount. I am drilling a shallow 3/4 inch hole that fits another chuck. After remounting onto the small chuck, I clean up the remaining stub from the dowel and sand and finish the interior. Had I sanded earlier, I would only need to touch up now. With a small chuck, I am very careful and gentle. Back to the expansion mount to haul out the base for the pumpkin to sit on. As Tom said in his description, whew, but that was fun. I appreciate his sharing his extension to the faux sea urchin process, but it is very doable if you follow the process with the modified octagon method and subsequent steps. It looks great. I love it. Just in time for Halloween and Thanksgiving. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, and tell your friends. I appreciate your comments and questions. Every week I make a new wood turning video and add it to my website. Please wear your full face shield for safety anytime the lathe is running. It is your last line of defense. I will see you next week with another wood turning video.